Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery. So my name is Bhante Sudaso, and I'm here with Bhante Sumitra. And this is our weekly monk chat, your opportunity to ask any random question you might have related to Buddhism, whether directly or indirectly, on any topic whatsoever, and we'll do our best to answer. So we can start by paying homage to the Buddha, and then as soon as some questions appear, then we'll start answering questions. So we can start with the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. And although I see 11 people are currently watching this, nobody's typed in any questions. So if no questions appear relatively shortly, then this might be the shortest monk chat on record. So far it's never yet happened that we had a monk chat that ended with no questions, but today might be the day. So hello to Amaranta, Sam, and Karen. Good to see the three of you joining in. And oddly enough, there's someone who's already loving this video, even though there's zero Dhamma content so far. So hopefully that's anticipation. And, a question. Patricia asks, would the Venerables please talk about how to skillfully relate to feelings, especially on avoiding the pitfalls of romanticizing them? Well, actually, my first thought is it depends what you mean by the word feelings. So do you mean emotions, or do you mean Vedana? So Vedana in the sense of sensations perceived as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So the English word feeling can have either of these two meanings in Buddhism. And depending on which meaning you have, that radically changes the question. So if by feelings you mean emotions, well, it's important to recognize that emotions are a normal part of having a mind, and things, okay, Patricia clarified she means emotions. Yeah, emotions are just a normal part of having a mind. So whether you're a human or an animal or a deva or anything else, it's normal to have emotions. And emotions appear as the result of past causes and present conditions. So the arising of an emotion is not necessarily something that we have any control over, because it's arising as an effect of past causes. But what we do once the emotion is present is a choice that we can make. So romanticizing emotions, that doesn't really make any sense to me. It's like romanticizing the length of your hair. It's like, well, it's just hair. The current length of your hair is the effect of past choices, past causes. Or romanticizing your health, whether it's good or bad. Well, it's just the effect of a past cause. It doesn't really mean anything. What we're much more interested in is to ask ourselves what the proper choice to make in the present moment is. So given our current condition, so given our present emotional condition, what are the wholesome choices that we can make? So there's nothing particularly special about any particular emotion. It's just information about the past conditioning of our mind. The much more important thing is to ask, how can we make decisions which lead towards awakening? So the Buddha does talk about evaluating the wholesome or unwholesome quality of any particular emotion, any mind state, any thought, anything whatsoever. And if something is wholesome, then we should make an effort to preserve it and to improve it, increase it. And if something is unwholesome, then we should make an effort to let it die out, to diminish, and also to try to prevent it from coming up again in the future. Again, this is just my feeling about what you might be asking. It also depends what you mean by romanticizing, but that's just what comes up for me right now. Bhante Simita, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think maybe we need to clarify when it comes to Buddhism. Through the 6 faculties, we experience things, right? So either through eye, nose, tongue, body, ears, or mind, we experience things, and depending on the way we look at things, way we perceive things, the experience can become either pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. And the very same experience can become different experiences to different people depending on the way you look at things. So maybe different temperament, people with different temperament also can see things in a different way. Let's say somebody um, with a um, predominantly aggressive character, they can see things differently. If someone does things very slowly, carefully, beautifully, maybe that person doesn't necessarily like it. And when somebody does it also faster, maybe a person with what we call actually dosa charita, raga charita, moha charita, right? Saddha, buddhi, vitaka, there are 6 kind of characters. So depending on their temperaments, they see things, they perceive things differently. So maybe more to do with the romantic. I think the raga charita could be even looking at things aesthetically. It makes sense to them more. They need to, they want to see things beautifully in a more artistic way or more different way than maybe people with some temperaments like um, other ill will or something like that. Maybe what we need to also say to cope up with the romanticizing, right? Yeah, look at the things that everything is impermanent, subject to change, and that way I think it will be much more easier for us to deal with uh, many things that we are so much attached to.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. And then Amaranta has a question. Can I choose any sutta to do my Paritta chanting? Can I guide myself with the book of Amaravati? I assume you mean the chanting book from Amaravati Monastery. I chant Mangala Sutta, Ratana Sutta, and Metta Sutta. Thank you. Any thoughts on this?
Um, yes, again, it depends on person to person. If you feel more comfortable with Amravati or whatever chanting, style of chanting or translations even, maybe you can go ahead and do that because that is more comfortable to you. Some people feel much more peaceful when they listen to certain chanting. Also depends on different cultures. So I think it is okay. You and also any sutta more, for that matter, would be also good. Like you listen to Dhammapada chanting, you listen to any other suttas like Mangala Sutta, Ratana Sutta, Karaniya Metta Sutta, or Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, or even Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. There are so many wonderful, wonderful suttas that you can keep listening to. Even Satipatthana Sutta, they are all really wonderful. Maybe listening to them will give you some kind of an inner peace, maintain some peace, but also it will be much more meaningful if you look into the deeper meanings of the content and then meditate on that. Hopefully, that will be your next step.
Okay, thank you. And then Sarah has a 3-part question, so let's go through this. She says, I am 31 years old and my mother passed away recently from a rare form of pancreatic cancer, only 6 weeks after the day she was diagnosed. She was an ordained Zen Buddhist priest, but also followed Theravada Buddhism. I'm in the beginning of my journey in studying Buddhism and the Buddhist teachings. I am really struggling and don't know how I will ever find pure joy after experiencing the traumatic loss of my mother. My mom said she would still be here in the universe, in the light and nature. What do you think happens after death? Well, first off, I'm sorry that you're going through the difficult process of grieving for your mother. For the record, my father passed away from cancer when I was 20. So I know a little bit of what it can feel like to lose one's parents when one is very young. To lose one of one's parents anyway. I lost my father. My mother is still alive, but I lost my father. And the process of grieving is a natural result of losing someone that you love. So like we were talking earlier about emotions as being a natural product of past causes and present conditions, grief is one of those. So you had someone in your life who you loved very much, and she passed away. So it's natural that grief will arise in your mind. That's perfectly normal. It's completely understandable. So the Buddhist practice then is to be fully aware of that emotion when it arises, recognizing it as something completely natural and completely normal. So not trying to either suppress it or to magnify it, but just to watch it as it arises, changes, and fades away. And you'll start to notice that it goes through this over and over and over again, possibly many, many times throughout the day. You'll notice grief arising, changing, and fading away. And this is completely normal. And as time goes by, it does eventually fade. So right now, it is probably very strong and very difficult for you. But in time, it does change and fade away. And you can't accelerate that process. It will happen in its own time. So be patient with yourself, and also be clear with the people in your life when you need help, which you probably need help coping with this experience. Be clear with the people in your life that you need help and that you're having a really hard time, and be open to receiving help from other people. Because it is a very difficult experience to lose a loved one, especially someone who's very close to you. So be patient with yourself, and in time, the grief process will work itself out, and you'll feel significantly better. And of course, it helps if you continue to practice Buddhism. So chanting actually can be really helpful. Chanting the qualities of the Buddha, chanting puritas, as was asked about earlier. Of course, doing meditation every day. Again, metta meditation is particularly recommended for these situations. And as for your question about what happens after death, well, the standard Buddhist answer is that we are reborn and live another life. And the life that we live, the conditions in that life are determined by the choices that we've made in the past. So you can also think about all the good things your mother did during her life. You can think about all of her morality, her generosity, her kindness, her wisdom. And if she was a ordained Zen priest, she probably had lots of good qualities for you to think about. And you can think about how all of those good qualities then are the conditions that create pleasant circumstances for her in future lives, including whatever life she's been reborn into now. So you can use that to get some solace or some comfort, knowing that she's currently experiencing the positive results of the good karma that she's made. And of course, very standard things in Buddhist practice are to do wholesome deeds and dedicate the merit to your departed mother. So make offerings, do meritorious deeds, act of generosity and compassion and kindness, and dedicate it to your mother, wishing wherever she is, may she receive the blessings of your practice. So that also is an important thing that you can do for your mother. Those are a few thoughts, Bhante Smita.
Yeah, I think every one of us have um, our loved ones, and the more we are attached to them, the more we suffer too. Right? When it comes to loss, um, so every one of us has lost someone who was so dear to us. My father also, I lost my father when I was 3. Yeah, my sister was just 17 when she passed away. So life is just like that. You know, when we talk to other people, you will also know that there are also people like that. And the story of Kisa Gotami, I think, is a wonderful example. How she was obsessed with that her only baby who passed away very young. She didn't even want to believe that the baby was dead. It took her a while to understand, realize everyone dies, and it is subject to everyone is subject to that, and it is common to all. We all come here uninvited, and when we come here, many a times, parents and other loved ones, family members, we bring smile to them, and then we start building up many relationships with other people, and we come alone, and then we go alone, making many people crying. And this is the sansara, this is the nature of the world. So I think, yes, it is the time, and time will definitely heal, but this will also be wonderful ways to open up ourselves, to look into the very nature of the world. I think that will be very helpful to see the reality of the world. And in Devadutta Sutta, for example, the Buddha mentioned there are certain messengers that are sent to us. The little babies, the sick people, and the dead bodies, they are all actually sending us a message, teaching us a wonderful lesson all about this life, this glorious uncertainty and impermanence, and so many ups and downs in our life, so that we need to learn from them. Whenever we see a little baby, we need to see that little baby can do anything by himself or herself. He or she needs some other's help, and we have to be kind hearted to them. We have to take care of them. Whenever we see a sick person, we also have to take care of them, because one day we will also be sick. Whether we like it or not, it can happen. And then again, when we see or hear about the death, we also have to think that will come to us as well. So during this short span of our lifetime, We need to do the best. We need to do as much good as we can, possibly can. And so, in retrospection, we can make our life more smiling and more meaningful to ourselves and to others.
Okay, thank you, Bante. And there's a question here from Karen asking, my heartbeat is the most prominent experience during meditation. It is felt everywhere in the body. The mind is agitated by this. Any suggestions? Well, a few things come to mind. First off is that you might consider making your heartbeat your object of meditation. Focus all your attention on clearly feeling your heartbeat and see if you can start to develop equanimity towards that sensation. Because, as you mentioned, it's part of your body. And at some point, we need to learn how to be fully aware of and peaceful with the experience of our own body. But if that's too challenging for you right now, then you might just do something completely different. Do a meditation practice which is not directly related to your body. So something like loving kindness meditation. It's really hard to go wrong with doing metta. Actually, we have here in the room our friend Belinda, who made this lovely little needle point that says, metta is always the answer. So it's never the wrong answer to do metta. It's always useful. But yeah, I recommend using your heartbeat as your meditation object and just recognize this is just what it feels like for the body to keep itself alive. This is a completely natural function of having a body. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think um, it's good to have that you recognize it, right? And I also I recommend maybe sometimes you can switch between anapanasati and metta meditation can be helpful as well, because when we focus on our breath, slowly we can also calm ourselves down. And if we can come to read the breathings, long breaths, short breaths, and eventually you will recognize the subtle breath. So you will see the progress. When you're bodily calm, your breath becomes subtle, and then the heartbeat becomes subtle as well. So the whole body, what we call pasambhayam kaya sankaram. So the entire body, the whole body, can become very calm and peaceful when you keep working on the anapanasati, the contemplation on breathing. Hopefully that will also help us. In order to do that, maybe you need to think of your posture. When you do this meditation, make sure your body is straight, and so your respiratory system works smoothly. And if it is a little bit blocked or disturbed, maybe you will also find some other palpitation or heartbeat a little bit more. Maybe you can also think of that. Maybe change the posture, maybe change the meditation subject. Try different ways and see how it works. And as Bhante Sutta so mentioned, take that heartbeat itself as a meditation object. Oh, this is so good. I can meditate on that. And then eventually it won't bother you anymore. It will be a blessing to you.
Okay, thank you. And Patricia asks, would the Venerables please share some words on creating art inspired by the Dhamma with deep sincerity and much respect? But are these enough? How to go about it skillfully? What do you think?
About the art,
Yeah, making art that's inspired by Dhamma.
I think Buddhism is so has inspired the art so much. If you see everywhere, like how Buddhism has inspired many artists, like the Buddha statues itself is enough. Like I have done an article on last time I remember I was working on the evolution of Buddha statue. It's amazing how the different artists in so many different regions, they have inspired themselves and try to showcase the Buddha's noble qualities. At the beginning, it was very difficult to think of the Buddha. Nobody has seen a Buddha, or nobody has, taken a picture of the Buddha. So it would have been very difficult. So, seen through the suttas, the qualities of the Buddha, they tried to um, try to include those Buddha qualities to some of the statues. At the beginning, they were only there were sandals, there were Dhamma wheel, and there were just empty seats used as the Buddha symbol of Buddha because they were scared to um, make the Buddha statue. It took so long for the artist to create the Buddha statue. And then it went on developing from Gandhara art to Mathura art to Greek art and everywhere in China, in Thailand, in Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, in Vietnam. All these Buddhist countries, we see the Buddha in their own unique ways. You see the Buddha in, for example, if you see the Thai Buddha statues, they feel like they are so connected to that statue. And if you see Sri Lankan Buddha statues, they are so connected to that style. And I'm sure one day it's happening now. So in Africa, for example, they would see the Buddha, uh, you know, whom they can feel more comfortable. And somehow in Europe, maybe in the Western region, also we'll see the Buddha in a different way, so close to their culture. And Buddhist art is amazing. I think it can also give so many things to meditate upon. They have done so many paintings, artwork, many Buddhist temples, many art and craft are all related to Buddhism. I think it has given so much. The contribution of Buddhist art to the world is uh, really amazing. Um, is that does it make sense?
Yeah. And so Sud asks, the Buddha says one thing that leads to Nibbana is Buddhanusati. So this is in reference to Anguttara Nikaya 1.296. So Sud says, this doesn't make sense, since don't you need all the path factors? So does this mean Buddhanusati will lead to all path factors? So first off, as I recall, that's from a series of suttas where the Buddha goes through saying, like, this is one thing that leads to awakening, and then it's just one sutta after another where he's giving different things, including many different meditation practices. So I don't think the Buddha's point there is that any one single meditation practice necessarily by itself leads to complete awakening, but rather that if one is committed fully to that practice as part of a complete Buddhist practice, then it can support awakening. So, for example, Buddhanusati is a good one, because when you reflect on the Buddha, when you think about the Buddha and the qualities of the Buddha, well, one of the qualities of the Buddha is the fact that we can be just like him. So one of the important things to remember when you remember the Buddha is that you are not substantially, permanently different from the Buddha. And at one point, the Buddha was exactly like you are now. And through many lifetimes of practice, eventually attained full awakening. So what that means is that you also can follow in the Buddha's footsteps and also attain complete awakening. So this can give you motivation for practice. And then also reflecting on the Buddha, you start reflecting, well, what is it that the Buddha did in order to attain awakening? Well, he developed Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. And you start reflecting on the Buddha, it's like, well, what did the Buddha teach? Well, he taught sila, samadhi, and panya. So then that starts to motivate you to commit yourself to practicing sila, samadhi, and panya. So in this way, although Buddhanusati in and of itself does not lead to awakening, it can be part of a complete practice. It can be a way of motivating ourselves to practice in a complete and thorough way. So I don't think that Buddhanusati in and of itself leads to all the path factors, but it can be a support for developing all the path factors. Bhante?
Yes, I think there are so many meditation methods that people can follow. And sometimes, if you are paramita, or if you are mentally about to blossom, you just need only maybe just listening to one stanza. That would be enough. But for some, they need to keep meditating, right? So somewhere, somehow, you will trigger that opening of your spiritual gate. So keep working on, try different meditations. If you think Buddha Anusati works for you, go ahead and do that. And so if it and also sometimes the very same meditation is not working all the time. Maybe morning metta meditation or loving kindness, maybe afternoon um, anapanasati or contemplation on breathing, or later on you can also practice on the foulness of the body or death contemplation. So many meditations are there. You can practice, you can experiment yourself and see what works best for you.
Then Anonymous asks, to enter the jhanas, do you have to get rid of all craving? No, but you do need to temporarily set aside any interest in sensory stimulation. So the complete elimination of craving only comes with full awakening. And you can enter jhana when you don't even have any stage of awakening. But in order to enter jhana, you do need to temporarily put down desire for sensory experiences, which can help you in starting to learn how to put down craving. So it can contribute to eventually being able to get rid of all craving. But it's not necessary in order to enter jhana to get rid of all craving. Good, clear enough?
Yeah, I think the five hindrances, right? You need to temporarily suppress the five hindrances. I remember in Mahanidesa and many other suttas, it talks about we have three levels of getting rid of the defilements. One is tadanga, that is temporary. When we do dana, sila, bhavana, when we practice those little things, also we temporarily suppress our defilements. We are very happy, pure mind, good heart when we do some charity activity, um, when we practice virtues or morality, and also when we practice generosity, we feel so good, but that is very temporary. And then Vikambana is the jhanic level. In jhanic level, we actually can um, profoundly suppress the defilements like the five hindrances. So what you call kamachanda, as Bante mentioned, the sensuality thing, and then um, kamachanda, then what do you call the other one? Vyapada,
Kamachanda, vyapada.
ill will, and uddhacha kukucha, the restlessness and doubt, and then thina midha, sloth and torpor, and all these are actually will be um, considerably um, gone, like very subtle. It will become very subtle when we are into jhanic level. But again, it will come up when we come out of the jhana. So you can meditate, you can have jhana forever. It will be great if you can, but as long as you are in the jhana, You can suppress those things to a greater extent. What you continue to do is you regularly practice jhana. That means the frequency is much more. So less frequency for defilements to come in. And that way you can eventually connect all of them and get rid of them, completely eradicate all forms of defilement. That is called samucheda level, complete eradication of all forms of defilement. That can happen only when you attain Maggaphala, Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahanta.
Okay. And Scott asks, in my investigations, the Buddha's teachings have a process when dealing with mistakes. The terror I feel at making moral mistakes is visceral. It brings a heightened awareness to every moment. Is this an example of healthy fear? Well, I don't particularly like the phrase healthy fear, because in the suttas, the Buddha always talks about fear as being a product of unwholesome mind states. So arhats, for example, have no fear because their mind has nothing unwholesome in it whatsoever. So fear is usually a product of delusion, or of some kind of desire or aversion. But in the particular context of practicing morality and trying to avoid doing unwholesome actions, I mean, if fear is a motivating factor that keeps you from doing bad things, then I guess that's okay as a first step. But what we're moving towards is keeping morality naturally. So not out of a fear of consequences, but just out of an understanding that morality is the natural behavior of a wise mind, that a wise mind naturally acts with kindness and gentleness and compassion. So not out of fear of the consequences of doing bad things, but simply of an understanding that this is the way that awakened beings behave. This is the way that wise people behave. So, yeah, I mean, in the beginning of practicing morality, fear of negative consequences, that can be a motivating factor. But it's a relatively uncomfortable form of motivation. I think it's much more productive to focus on the pleasantness of goodness, to focus on how happy and peaceful and joyful it feels when we're kind and generous and thoughtful towards others. I think that's a much more powerful motivating factor. And it doesn't carry with it the agitating discomfort that terror has. So that's what I would recommend. I'd recommend trying to gravitate towards a more peaceful motivation for morality, rather than using fear as a motivation. Any thoughts?
I was wondering if she was referring to Deva Dhamma. There are certain things called Deva Dhamma, Dhamma of the Devas. That is the law of the divine beings. It is said Lajja and Bhaya. Lajja means the shame to do the wrong things, and fear is the Bhaya, fear to do the wrong things. So these are the controlling factors of the world. That is why they are also called Lokapalaka Dhamma. If one has these two qualities, fear to do wrong things and shame to do wrong things, that will actually make them so wholesome, and they will always be protected from falling into wrong practices, doing wrong things. I was wondering if that is the case. And then lajja bhaya, or what do you call fear and shame to do wrong things, can be motivating factors in that case.
And Rick asks, frequently I am mindfully aware of the visual narratives in my mind when my mind is not asleep but not fully awake. Gil Fronsdale calls this the story-making mind. Can you share some reflections on being mindful in this state of mind? Well, I mean, you should be mindful in every state of mind. But what I would encourage, though, is that it sounds like that's a condition where the mind is being allowed to proliferate, to generate noise, to generate narratives. So what I would recommend is try to be mindful in that state of mind and not to participate in the story making. Try to let the story making go silent. So you don't need to force the story making to stop. You just need to stop participating in it. And it will tend to die out on its own. So that's what comes to mind for me anyway. Do you have any thoughts?
I think that is good.
Okay. Then Diane asks, lately when I meditate, I have been inundated by memories of my pre-Buddhist days when I acted unskillfully and caused others pain. Is this a normal process? It is causing me great pain. It's quite normal, actually. It's quite normal to have thoughts of past mistakes. One thing that you can do is to remind yourself of your present commitment to goodness. So, for example, I can bring up memories of as a teenager when I stole something. But in a very real sense, that's a different person, because this person right here does not steal things and has a firm commitment to not stealing things, to the point where, like, the thought of stealing something is just, it just makes absolutely no sense to my mind. Like, I just wouldn't even conceive of doing such a thing. I understand that there was this young, foolish teenager many years ago who thought it was okay to steal things. But I know that I am not that person. So there's a memory, but the memory is a story of a different person. So yeah, you can remember the bad things you did before getting into Buddhism, but remember them as stories about a different person, because you are not that person anymore. Now you're a person who's committed to morality, not a person who thinks that immorality is okay. So you can be aware of the stories, but recognize that they're not a story about you. Rather, they're a story about a past experience. And if you caused others pain and you're unhappy about the fact that you caused others pain, then make a commitment that you won't do that anymore. Make a commitment that instead you'll try to help people, bring happiness to people. And then come back to your meditation object. Okay? Anything you want to add?
I think, yeah, we are not perfect, right? We try to be perfect through this imperfect life. So the Buddha said actually, Atitang nanuso chanti nappajapanti nagatang pachupannena yakanti tenavanno pasidati. In Sangyutta Nikaya, Devata Sangyutta, this stanza is said by a monk, also said by, it is repeated in some other places as well. It says like, you don't repent on your past. Things happen, whatever happened. And also you don't daydream about your future. Future is yet to come. And why do we actually worry about the future that has not yet come? So the past is already gone. We can't do anything about that. But the best thing is to stay at the right moment, stay at the present moment. So meditation is just about that. Our mind is jumping to either past or to the future. Our challenge is to keep the mind at the present moment. And if we can keep the mind at the present moment, we'll be able to be happier forever. Now we are happy. Every time we are happy, right? And so don't worry about the past. If this was the case, Angulimala would not have become Arahant. He has done so many bad things in the past. But the Buddha helped him not to worry about the past. Stay right here, right now, and focus on your present moment. And that way he could actually get rid of all the samsaric suffering. And he became an arahant, an enlightened being. So if he could do it, a person who killed so many people, and we could do too. We could get rid of all the shortcomings that we have done in the past. And if we are committed to correct ourselves, rectify ourselves, if we are ready to accept our mistakes, and then there is more chance for us to also be enlightened.
Great. And Rick asks, how do we skillfully relate to the passage of time in living an inspired practice without feeling too pressured by our short lifespan? What do you think?
Um, yeah, can you please repeat that, the
So,
first part?
how to skillfully relate to the passage of time. So, living an inspired practice, but not feeling too pressured by our short life.
Yeah, life is definitely short. We can be inspired by every time we see the sunrise in the morning, sunset in the evening. It reminds us the impermanence and the shortness of life too. And you see, every time we see the beautiful flowers blossoming in the morning and then fading away in the evening, and that again is a constant reminder of our own life. And that is why when we offer flowers to the Buddha, we think of them. Um, uh, like puppha milayati yatha idame kayo tathayati vinasubhavam. Just as this flower decays, so is our body. We also die. So it is actually a profound meditation when we offer flowers, also lamb, and also some incense. They all give us a powerful lesson, a meditation practice for our own life. So think of it like um, every night we go to bed and we wake up in the morning, and in between it's like a temporary death, several hours of death, right? So it's a good practice. It's a good lesson for us. Train ourselves for the bigger sleep later on. So if we keep thinking of it, and that will be very helpful. And some people go to bed, never wake up, right? And also every time we breathe in and we breathe out, we can think like breathe in is like the birth, breathe out is like the death. And every time we wink our eyes, we close our eyes, we don't see anything. It's like the death. We open our eyes, we see the light. It's like the birth. So every time we have many, many things in the nature around us that we can learn about the shortness of life. So what is more important? Right now, right here, we need to do good and be good. So make our life more meaningful, and no regrets, no daydreaming. Just be happy right here, right now.
Great, thank you, Bante. And Faze asks, what is the perfect thing to consider as an object in a meditation? Can we consider a picture of the Buddha? So the perfect meditation object is whatever works for you in that at that time. So there is no single perfect meditation object for everybody at all times. I mean, one of the most commonly taught methods, of course, is mindfulness of breathing. But if you're going to do mindfulness of breathing, it's really important that you learn the 16-step instructions that the Buddha gave for mindfulness of breathing. You can just sit around focusing on your breathing for 100 lifetimes and not be any closer to awakening. But the Buddha's 16-step instructions for mindfulness of breathing are a complete path that brings you through concentration to the development of wisdom. But yeah, I mean, what's the right meditation object? experiment with different kinds of meditation and start to learn how different meditation methods affect the mind in different ways, and start to feel the conditions of your own mind so that you can know which meditation object to use under different circumstances. So focusing on a picture of the Buddha, that can actually be a powerful way of meditating. Or gazing at a Buddha statue or a picture of the Buddha, yeah, that can be very, very useful. So try it out, see what it feels like. I like to meditate facing towards a Buddha image, so that then if I open my eyes, the first thing I see is the Buddha. And sometimes I'll just gaze lovingly at the Buddha for a few minutes. And that can be a very powerful way of gladdening the mind and reminding ourselves of our aspiration. So yeah, that's perfectly acceptable if that's something that works for you. Bhante, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, Buddha Nusati is a powerful meditation technique. A lot of people do that. Like whenever you see the Buddha statue, it brings you peace, happiness, and also when you look at the Buddha statue or a Buddha Rupa or a painting of the Buddha, we just think through that. Um, we we see the Buddha's noble qualities, like Arahant, for example. Arahant is a quality of the Buddha, that he has got rid of all defilements, and he has even not done any committed anything wrong, even in secret. Araha also means not even secret. In secret, he has done something wrong, um, and he has got rid of all defilement, and he is worthy of being respected by all devas, all brahmas, all humans, and he is worthy of being respected by all. That is why he is called Arha. And thinking of that, I also want to become an Arha. I also want to be a worthy person. I also want to be a very pure person. And that will be a beautiful Buddhanusati meditation for you. And just like any other meditation, it can open up your spiritual gate one day. Yeah, keep trying.
And next question, Anonymous asks, is the experience of jhanas different for everyone? Are jhanas a vision? So first off, no, jhanas are not a vision. Definitely not. But is it different for everyone? In the sense that everyone has their own particular conditions of body and mind. So then, of course, there'll be some variations in experience because of that. But the basic qualities, the basic aspects of the experience of jhana are the same for everyone. The Buddha, he gives the standard definition of jhana, and then he also gives some variations on that in a few different suttas. But it contains a certain discrete number of qualities, qualities of mind, aspects of the experience, characteristics. And those characteristics are going to be experienced by everyone who enters jhana. Otherwise, it's not jhana. It's what defines jhana. So from one, is it different for everyone? From one perspective, yes, because everyone is a individual who has their own particular conditions. And on the other side, you can say, no, it's not different for everyone, because jhana is defined as an experience which has particular characteristics. And if you have those characteristics, then it's jhana. If it's jhana, it has those characteristics. So in that sense, it's the same for everyone. And no, jhanas are not a vision. Jhana is the unification of mind. It's the perfection of samadhi. It's when the mind is completely stable, sharp, alert, and joyful, without needing to do anything at all. So it's not a vision. It's an experience of mind, but it's not a vision. And it doesn't even necessarily have a visual component. I mean, even the distinction of the different senses becomes irrelevant when one is in deep samadhi. The distinction between sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mind becomes irrelevant when one is in deep samadhi. It all unifies, which is one of the literal meanings of the word samadhi is unification, coming together. So all the parts of our experience come together into a single unification of mind. So it's not a vision. It's more the unification of mind. That's what I would say anyway. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's about the five jhanic factors, right? Vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata. So applying thought and also sustained thought, and then the piti is that rapture, the joy that you gain through this will be unprecedented. You have never ever experienced such a wholesome happiness, joy, um, as when you are into jhana, and also sukha, the comfort, and also the ekaggata. So I think these are ekaggata is the that unification or that oneness that will be very important, and maybe different can happen. The variation can happen depending on the duration of the jhana. Some people, when they practice jhana, they have to also they have to keep this jhana more sustainable, more longer. And the longer you can retain the jhanic power, so maybe that experience can be a little more different. For example, the anagami people or the arhant people, they also can do go into Nirodha Samapatti, it is said. And Nirodha Samapatti is again even more higher level of attainment, and they can keep practicing. They can sustain the jhana or samapatti or attainment for 7 long days without even having sleep, without having food. They can continue to be in that perfectly beautiful, sublime, wholesome state. So they are powerful, and depending on how frequently you can gain jhana, maybe some people can gain jhana only once, only for a fraction of a second, and then some people can continue to improve on that. Duration of the jhana can be improved, and also um, you should be able to control. So it is also mentioned in Visuddhimagga and Abhidhammata Sangha. You can have more information about these things if you want to learn more about those characteristics and other things about the jhana.
Okay, and that's the last question from online. Any questions from the monastery residents? No. Okay, so I think that's it for this evening. So we can go ahead and end our monk chat session at this time with three sad. Oh, one more question. Okay, so we have another question from Rick, so we'll go a little bit longer. Rick asks, what are skillful actions to take at times in our practice when we find ourselves just going through the motions? Keep going through the motions. That's actually very important. Even when your practice feels hollow and meaningless, keep doing it. Because what tends to happen is that as you keep doing it, your motivation starts to resurface, and you start to remember why you're practicing. It can also be really helpful to think about inspiring monastics who you've met or who you know about. It can be helpful to read biographies. Actually, that's something I found incredibly helpful in the early days of my monastic life when the going got difficult. I would read biographies of Buddhist monks. And part of what was so inspiring is that a lot of their life stories is talking about the difficulties and challenges they went through and how they eventually overcame their difficulties and became really wonderful practitioners. So I always found that very inspiring. So that's one thing you might consider doing: read biographies of Buddhist monks. And remember the pleasantness that's come as a result of your practice in the past. So the peace of mind or joyfulness of mind that you've sometimes experienced, however brief or however slight, remind yourself. And of course, think about the Buddha. It's never wrong to think about the Buddha. That's also a great way to keep us motivated. Yeah, just keep going through the motions. And that also builds up a resilience of mind, of being able to keep practicing even when you don't really feel like it. Okay. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think you need to keep practicing and make sure it is registered in your system. When you keep practicing, for example, every day morning, 6 o'clock, 5:30, you meditate and you continue to do it. If you are a brand new meditation practitioner, just do it for 21 days and it will register in your system. So every day 5:30, you don't have to do it. You will be automatically motivated. Hey, time to meditate. You will wake up, jump out of the bed, and you will go to meditate. So yes, sometimes depending on the mood, depending on the circumstances, the weather, and other things can also be contributory factors. But you keep sitting, keep working, keep walking, keep thinking with your mindfulness, with your meditation, and then it will become very, very powerful. It will become a very integral part of your practice to make your life more wholesome and more energetic and more positive.
Great. And that really is the last question this time. So we'll go ahead and end with 3 sadhus. So thank you all for joining in, and we'll close it this time. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And I see Michaela in Italy saying hello. So hello to Michaela, and we'll be in Italy very soon. So hopefully we'll see you then. And we'll see you all next time.